Yeah, what Brad was just saying is super important. I think that if you look at any man who's very good at being a man, most of them have had extremely traumatic lives. Yeah. If you're going to talk about the most brave man you can think of, he's been through trauma. If you think of the best soldier you can think of, he's been through trauma. You think about anything, the man who's going to charge into the burning building, the fireman, he's been through trauma. If you find a man who's never had any traumatic experiences, he's terrible at being a man. Yeah. He's weak and he's soft and he'll collapse and he's never struggled. I know me, and I don't want to tell a bunch of stories on the internet, but I know all the I went through and all the pain I had to suffer to become the man I am. And every time I meet another guy who has his life in order, it's the same story. This fucked me up, but I thought, fuck it, I'm going to attack the world anyway. Yeah. And that's how it goes. So as a man, you're right. You're right. You have to be vulnerable. You have to feel it. You have to accept it, but you have to put it in a positive direction. This is what's so dangerous about what we were saying earlier, where people make excuses and externalize because they're taking that trauma and that pain instead of going, I fucked up. She left me because I wasn't good enough. I'm going to become better. Instead, she is the problem. Yeah, it's there. And then they lose their ability to go and become something. They lose their own motivational force. And then they sit there with a fucking ego and arrogance and go, I don't need to become any better. I can stay a jackass. It's all her fault. I'll find another one. And then it happens on repeat. And it just ends up a downward cycle of dumb shit.
Where did you develop this stuff? Like, where in your life did you start to develop this? Like, at what point were you like, this is the person that I am? Was it something like your father taught you? I know you had some stuff there. I know he passed away. But like, how did you develop the person that you are, the human that you are? Because obviously it happens over time. But like, what were the major key points in your life where you're like, oh shit, I'm starting to realize this is what's very important for me, right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm not sure I know the answer completely and utterly. My entire life, I've always woken up thinking or feeling like I had an enemy to fight against. As long as I can remember, I've always had. I was a professional chess player when I was a kid. So when I was 4, I woke up and my dad was sitting there saying, you're playing this Chinese kid, he's good. Right. So I always had that. Then I had professional fighting. I had 87 fights. So my whole life I had some fight coming up. And now I wake up and the Matrix is attacking me. So I've always woken up feeling like I had an enemy. Mm-hmm. And that's certainly shaped my reality. It definitely shapes how I act and shapes how I think. I've always felt like I was in war, if that makes sense.
Have you ever felt like you were your own worst enemy?
No, in fact, quite the opposite. I've had a healthy fear and respect for all of my enemies to the point where I've understood the only chance I stand to beat them is to have as many allies as possible. And the most important ally is my own mind. Yeah. I have enough people who dislike me that I don't have the luxury of doubting myself. So even at the height of the cancellation, right, when they were coming at me with everything, and I haven't even told you some of the stuff they come at me with, I'm about to tell you, and it's a lot more scary than getting deleted from Instagram.
Sure.
When they were coming at me, absolutely, even the people close to me are going, you're dealing with this well. And I was like, I have now innumerable shadow figures trying to destroy me. If my brain betrays me, I'm really f***ed, right? Yeah. Like I can't go down that path. So no, it's actually completely the utter opposite. I've galvanized myself against internal enemies. Me and every single part of me is all on the same team, and it always will be. And I think that's because, like I said, my whole life I was battling against something and someone else. We live in a very, very hateful world. And I think love comes from a position of strength. I think you always have to be a strong person to love. I think you have to be an intelligent person to love, which is why stupid people are so hateful. And you have to work on yourself. And I think you have to become strong in your body and mind to love things. It's not easy to love things and people when they do you wrong. It's not easy to love a woman again after your last one did whatever. Yeah. It's not easy to do it. You have to be a strong individual. And that's why I think love comes from strength, which is why I always say strength is so important mentally and physically. I say that all the time. It's all I talk about. I say that if you're a man, the easiest way to improve your life in every single possible way is to just work on your physical strength, and your mental strength will follow, and you become a better person and you can love. You know this yourself. Look at the size of you, right? You go in the gym, it's the biggest guys that are the nicest guys. True or false?
True.
Because they don't have this ego. It's the same. If you walk in a fighter gym, the most deadly dude in there is going to be a nice guy.
And it's interesting how the perception is that you're going to be a bad guy because of the way you look.
Completely.
A lot of things, like the things that you say or the things that you're doing, or like the masculine stance that you take, you're a bad guy.
Yep.
And it's just, the whole thing is just crazy to me how it happens. But I really want to emphasize that for the people listening, is like self-love is the most important thing, and being able to give love and share love. Like, what else are we doing all this for?
Completely. And you can't pour from an empty cup. And before you give love to anybody else, you have to truly love yourself. And I think the easiest way to love yourself as a man is to be proud of yourself. And to be proud of yourself, you have to decide who you want to be inside of the metaverse, inside of the Matrix. You have to decide the character you want to be and try your best to achieve it.
Why do you think people struggle with being proud of themselves?
I think because they know they're failing. I think that most people failing in life know very well they're failing. And it doesn't matter what avatar you decide to absorb or who you decide to be. You can decide to be it, and you know true in your heart if you're giving 100% of your energy towards becoming it or not. It doesn't matter if you want to become a famous musician. Doesn't matter if you want to become a bodybuilder. Doesn't matter if you want to become a pro fighter. Doesn't matter what you want to be. You know in your heart if you're actually trying or not. You have to decide what you want to be and try and become it. And a lot of the people who are genuinely unhappy or miserable in their hearts know they're not trying that hard.